Armin Meiwes. Armin Meiwes is a German former computer repair technician who received international attention for murdering and eating a voluntary victim in 2001, whom he had found via the internet. He was arrested in December 2002. In January 2004, Meiwes was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 8 years and 6 months in prison. In a retrial in May 2006, he was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Because of his acts, Meiwes is also known as the Rotenburg Cannibal or Der Metzgermeister, the Master Butcher. Meiwes was arrested in December 2002 when a college student alerted authorities to new advertisements for victims online. Investigators searched his home and found body parts and the videotape of the killing. Meiwes was diagnosed with a schizoid personality but deemed fit to stand trial. On January 30, 2004, Meiwes was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 8 years and 6 months in prison. The case attracted considerable media attention. The German cannibal killer Armin Meiwes was sentenced to life in prison today, as a court overturned his earlier 8-year sentence for killing and eating the computer engineer Bernd-Jürgen Brandes in 2001. Meiwes admitted cannibalizing Brandes and expressed regret for his actions. He added he wants to write a biography with the aim of deterring anyone wanting to follow in his footsteps. At his retrial, a psychologist stated that Meiwes could reoffend, as he still had fantasies about devouring the flesh of young people. On May 10, 2006, a court in Frankfurt convicted Meiwes of murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment. Mark Lutensky. A confessed Michigan cannibal was sentenced to life in prison for the Christmas Eve killing and mutilation of a man he met through a dating app in 2019. Mark Lutensky, 53, was handed a life sentence without the possibility of parole by a Shiawassee County judge after he pleaded guilty in September to the sickening slaughter of a 25-year-old hairdresser named Kevin Bacon. Lutensky was convicted of first-degree murder as well as disinterment and mutilation of a dead body, for which he received an additional 11-month sentence that will be served concurrently. He confessed to stabbing Bacon in the back and removing parts of his body, which he told investigators he ate. Bacon, of Swartz Creek, was reported missing by family members when he didn't show up to breakfast on Christmas morning in 2019. Investigators found his car parked at a Dollar General store and then tracked his last location to Lutensky's home in Bennington Township. His butchered body was found 3 days later hanging upside down from the ceiling of Lutensky's basement. Investigators said Lutensky and Bacon met via the LGBTQ dating app Grindr. Lutensky lured his victim to his home, where he brutally murdered him. Lutensky initially pleaded not guilty due to insanity but reversed course and pleaded guilty to murder right before the case was set to go to trial. Following the plea, Shiawassee County Judge Matthew Stewart was given the power to determine if the murder charge would be classified as first-degree or second-degree murder. He ruled that the killing was premeditated first-degree murder in October. Esteban Carpio. Esteban Carpio is an American convicted prison inmate, serving a life sentence for the murder of a policeman in 2005. He was convicted of the murder of Providence Police Detective Sergeant James L. Allen on April 17, 2005 at Providence Police Headquarters. While Carpio was being questioned by the Providence Police for the stabbing of an 85-year-old woman, Madeline Gatta, a detective, left the third-floor interview room to get water for Carpio, leaving Allen alone with Carpio. Carpio took Allen's gun and shot him twice, killing him. He then jumped out of the window and was apprehended 45 minutes later. At his arraignment, Carpio came in wearing a mask designed to keep the offender from spitting at or biting others, with his eyes red and cheeks, forehead, and cranial region swollen, stunning the courtroom, with his family making accusations of police brutality. According to a press conference statement made at the time by Providence Police Chief Dean M. Esserman, Carpio's injuries were sustained as a result of his jump from the third floor of a building and struggle with law enforcement. At trial, Christopher Zarella, a state police detective who helped in the arrest, testified that he had punched Carpio in the face 3 times. According to that day's testimony, Zarella broke bones in Carpio's face. An FBI investigation concluded that Providence Police did not use excessive force. On June 27, 2006, a jury found Carpio guilty of the murder of Detective Allen and the stabbing of Madeline Gatta. The jury rejected Carpio's insanity defense. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Peter Bryan. Peter Bryan is a British serial killer with schizophrenia who committed 3 murders between 1993 and 2004. In 1994, Bryan was sent to Rampton Secure Hospital after admitting to the murder of 21-year-old shop assistant Nisha Sheth, who was beaten to death with a hammer in 1993. Bryan killed friend Brian Cherry on February 17, 2004, just hours after being discharged from the mental health unit. Reportedly, the victim had been dismembered and officers found a frying pan on the stove with tissue from the dead man's brain. Bryan was remanded to Broadmoor Hospital after appearing in court over Cherry's death. On April 25, Bryan killed fellow patient Richard Loudwell, aged 59, while still in Broadmoor. Bryan said that if he had not been interrupted, he would have eaten Loudwell. On March 15, 2005, Bryan pleaded guilty at the Old Bailey to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Judge Giles Forrester said, "You killed on these last 2 occasions because it gave you a thrill and a feeling of power when you ate flesh." Forrester sentenced Bryan to a whole life tariff. In 2006, Lord Chief Justice Lord Phillips overturned the whole life tariff, but said it was unlikely that Bryan, who was mentally ill, would ever be released. The sentence was changed to a minimum of 15 years. Bryan was committed to Broadmoor Hospital for treatment. Omema Nelson. Omema Eri Nelson is an Egyptian former model and nanny who was convicted of murdering her husband, Bill Nelson. She is serving a life sentence at California Institution for Women as of 2020. Her case made international headlines due to allegations of cannibalism. She met her husband William E. Bill Nelson, a 56-year-old pilot, in October 1991 when she was 23. Within days of meeting, the couple married, but Omema would later claim that during the couple's month-long union, she suffered sexual abuse by her husband. Omema claimed that on November 28, 1991, Bill had sexually assaulted her in their Costa Mesa, California apartment. Following this, Omema stabbed Bill with scissors, then began beating him with a clothes iron. After killing him, she began dismembering his body and cooked it. She told her psychiatrist that she had cooked her husband's ribs in barbecue sauce and eaten them, but later denied this. Omema was arrested on a suspicion of murder charge on December 2, 1991, and her trial began almost exactly 1 year later on December 1, 1992. During the trial, it was revealed that as a child living in Cairo, she had undergone female genital mutilation and sex was traumatic and painful for her, only increased by the assaults she allegedly sustained during her marriage. She was convicted of second-degree murder on January 12, 1993. She was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. That was it for today's video. We hope you like it. If you want to see more interesting videos, then make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button.